The process is a myth. The process is one of the biggest lies told on anti-social media in 2024. The process by itself is horseshit. Michael McLean, brassballsvideos.com. I'm an ex-professional hockey coach, ex-championship junior coach and team owner. You can download a free copy of my brand new book, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days. Trust me, this book is not everybody's cup of whiskey. Brassballsvideos.com. The link is also below. It's 22 pages. It's free. There's nothing else to buy. You can click on the link below, print it off, share it, read it, to do whatever you want. Doesn't make any difference to me. It's my gift to you. 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next month. If you need a kick in the pants or you need to get your shit together in the next 30 days, like most of us have many times throughout our lives, click on the link and download and print off that book. So, all you hear about from the wet behind the ears gurus living in mummy's little basement, or the fuzzy-headed MBA academics, or I call them pretend experts on anti-social media. These guys haunt those places. They've never won anything in the past, never won anything presently, but they sell winning. The only way they make their living is telling stories of how to win. And then when I ask them, well, how have you won in the past? What championship rings do you have? What scars do you have? What expensive experience do you have? And what championships are you presently winning right now? And the answer is always the same. Well, I haven't won anything. I haven't really been winning or losing. I'm just one of these pretend experts who's long on style, short on substance. Get away from those guys. Curate them out of your life. Don't listen to them. Don't follow them. Don't read their content. Book reports from pretenders can be very dangerous for a person's health. So, yesterday, Sheldon Keefe, the former head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, was fired as the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs after 5 seasons. Even I saw that one coming. I predicted it. It was the easy way out. It was the way for the dummies that run Maple Leaf sports and entertainment to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. I think that's Shanahan's, the president, Brendan Shanahan. I believe that's his 4th coach. So he'll be hiring his 5th coach in his decade-long tenure as president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've also fired 4 general managers under his watch. But once again, just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Nobody holds the ownership group accountable. Nobody holds Shanahan as the president accountable. And nobody holds the 5 guys on the roster that are making 55 to 60% of all the money, 10 sheets, 12 sheets a year, never held accountable. Leafs haven't won a Stanley Cup since before I was born. So what did they do yesterday? They give the head coach, Sheldon, they actually did him a great favor. Give him the pipe, get rid of him. Now they got to pay Sheldon for the next 2 years. If he's smart, he'll take a 2-year family sabbatical. He'll make those SOBs pay every bit of that $6 million. He can hang out with his queen. He can volunteer and coach his sons in minor hockey. Get the hell out of Toronto. Get away from that city. Get away from that softness. Get away from that entitlement. Get the hell out of Canada if it was me. And enjoy the next 2 years of your life with your family. and on the tab of Toronto Maple Leafs sports and entertainment. So I didn't want to start off with a rant today, but what the hell? I got to talk about the process, the Nick Saban. Nobody's a bigger fan of Nick Saban than myself. Nobody's a bigger fan of Bill Parcells. Nobody's a bigger fan of any of these successful coaches in football or in hockey. And the saying, of course, is trust the process. As if Saban, was somebody came and anointed Saban with the trust the process. I mean, anybody that wins in business, anybody that wins in their personal life, their health, their fitness, their marketing, their copywriting, their marriage, it's all about the daily habits, the daily rituals, the daily rules. That's all I talk about. That's all I talk about is the daily routine, the daily success, and it's all about the process. But here's the thing. You're missing the most important part. And a tip of the hat to Sheldon, who, by the way, has done nothing but win as a hockey coach his entire career. The only place he didn't win was in Toronto. What a thing, right? The only place he couldn't lift a title was in Toronto. So there you have it. Take that payout, make them pay it, and enjoy your life, Sheldon. But what a class guy. What a class guy. He belongs on television for the next couple of years. Intelligent, well-spoken. He would do very well on the ESPN panel or the TSN panel. Somebody who actually knows the game, played the game, coached the game. So he would be great on television, infotainment business. So what does Keefe do yesterday? When everybody around the Leafs are like the Lakers, where everything it's a big faceless corporation, right? The biggest $1 billion corporation. So they have all the stuffed white shirts and all the PR people and all the spin people, but not Sheldon. He's a regular blue collar guy, former NHL player, a husband and a father. And what does he do? When he sits down to talk yesterday, he talks about taking 100% responsibility for the Leafs not winning in the playoffs. His regular season record is tremendous, but he sits down and what's the first thing he does? He does the polar opposite of everybody else in that garbage organization, in that country club locker room and ivory tower. He's the only guy with the brass balls to sit down. He said it before he was fired. He said it yesterday when he was dismissed. He's like, I take 100% responsibility for the losses and for not getting it done. I love a guy, especially a man, who even though it's definitely not all his fault, he had 5 years. Nobody's feeling sorry for Sheldon Keefe. He had his 5 years. But I love it when a man, whether they're a coach or a husband or a father or an entrepreneur, says, you know what? It may not even be my fault that this thing has happened in my world, but it is my responsibility to fix it. How many people do you think have that mindset nowadays where they go, not only is it not my fault that this happened, but because I'm the king, because I'm the leader of my family, because I'm the CEO, because I'm a father, because I'm a husband, even though it wasn't necessarily all my fault or even any of your fault, they take 100% ownership for it. That's what Sheldon Keefe did yesterday. I haven't heard one person talk about what I'm talking about in this video. They watched the press conference. They're like, oh, what a classy guy. Hope he gets another coaching job. Hope he lands on his feet. All this fucking poodle shit. When I'm sitting there going, this guy is brilliant. This guy is a proven champion at all levels, everywhere but Toronto. And I'm sitting there going, he nailed it. he talked about how everything in Toronto under Brendan Shanahan, losing, only winning one series in Shanahan's reign as president. He says all they talk about is the process. It's like they read Nick Saban's book and said, "Oh, this sounds good." Or maybe Shanahan played for a great coach one time and said, "Gee, I'm going to write that down because that really sounds good." It's about our habits. It's about our daily rules. It's about being violently consistent. That's the stuff I talk about every day. But it's also the stuff that I do every day. But here's the thing that Sheldon talked about, and he doesn't give a shit, right? Because now they got to pay him for the next 2 years, and he's been fired. So he's up there. The media doesn't have a clue, right? They can't, those guys, they can't skate, let alone play the game. But there they are, all those guys up there trying to figure out exactly what happened. And Sheldon's like, the process is the first part, but accountability is the most important part. And then he sat there and took responsibility for them not winning a Stanley Cup in his 5 years. He took full responsibility. He goes, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to take the players that I'm given, not to blame ownership like LeBron James, not to blame the players like LeBron James, not to blame the city like LeBron James. And he takes 100% ownership. And there's a guy that could have made excuses. He could have said, I didn't have the right players. I didn't have the support. I didn't have the whatever. None of it. I take 100% responsibility for the losses. And that's the part of the process that these cupcakes never talk about. The wet behind the ear gurus, because they've never won anything. So I'll give you a real life example. I always talk about every day pounding the rock, chipping away at it. My friend and former Detroit and Toronto and NBA championship assistant coach Dwayne Casey spoke to my mastermind a few years ago. Pound the rock, chip away at it, Michael, chip away at it. Hit it 1,000 times, the stone will break wide open 1,001. Maybe you got to pound the rock 10,000 times. All of a sudden the stone will miraculously crack open on the 10,000th and one hit. And the thing is, most people quit just before the stone cutter tale is, most people will quit just right before the stone's about to split open. So chipping away, that's what I've always talked to my athletes about, pounding the rock, chipping away, focusing on what you can control, your daily habits, your daily rules, all that kind of stuff. Now, all these low IQ gurus and consultants, now they talk as if they know what they're talking about. Now they're all fans of the process. But they left out the most important part. And Saban rarely talks about this as well. And now that he's retired, you'll never hear it again. But accountability is what separates a Parcells, a Belichick, any of these top, a Pat Riley, a Mike Keenan, a Scotty Bowman, any and all of these top guys, whether they're CEOs, a Steve Jobs, an Elon Musk, a Henry Ford, a Winston Churchill, a Margaret Thatcher, all of these people followed the process, but then they held the process accountable. They knew they were in a results-driven business. When you're paid $50 million to put a ball through a hoop, you don't sit there at the press conference and say, "Oh well, it's just basketball." $50 million to say, "Oh well, it's basketball." Compare that to what a guy like Kobe said, if you don't compete against me, I'm going to take you to the woodshed. I'm going to kick your fucking ass. Compare that to a Michael Jordan who at that time was like, I'll do anything to win. I'll cross the line to win. I'll do whatever it takes to win. And then he had his Bulls teammates in the documentary they did a handful of years ago saying, yes, this guy was an absolute lunatic as a teammate. Yes, he did cross the line. And yes, it did work. We won 6 NBA championships with Michael Jordan literally refusing to lose. He couldn't live with losing. He could not live with losing, so he didn't. Same thing with Tiger Woods, the same way with Joe Montana, the same thing with Larry Bird, the same thing with Jerry Rice, the same thing with Tom Brady, the same, you just go down the list. Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky, these guys simply understand that there's an accountability part of the process. You just don't sit at the table after you're the leader of the team, you're making $50 million a year, and basically you just say to the media, fuck it, it's just basketball. By the way, if you want me back, it'll be $163 million, plus you got to draft my kid who can't play. And it just goes on. And these tomato can organizations that are run by billionaires and faceless corporations and ivory tower corporations, they're just like, oh, we want you so bad. They put on the knee pads and they bring these clowns in. And then after a handful of years, they look at their franchise after the LeBron has left, and they're just like, wow, all he left was the carcass. So, I mean, Sheldon nailed this yesterday, and the media never talked about it, of course. They don't want to talk about the accountability part. This is the same as a school teacher saying, well, you know, I taught your daughter spelling all year, but she can't spell cat if I give her a C and a T. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Michael. Or I taught your son math this year, but he tells me that 2 + 2 = fucking 6. So, you know, or we're gonna give you $50 million to come here to Los Angeles, but don't worry about it. Long as we win the goofy tomato can in-season tournament, we're good. So Sheldon nailed it yesterday. And if you had a beer with Nick Saban, or you had a beer with Bill Belichick or any of these guys, they would talk more about the accountability. If you don't produce in their world, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a marketing director, whether you're an employee, whether you're an athlete, those guys are gonna kick your ass the hell out of their world. So yes, the process is important, especially when did Saban talk the most about the process? And this is important. This is a writer downer. Nick talked the most about the process when he moved from Miami into that horseshit Alabama program. At the time, Alabama had been through a whole bunch of coaches. It was a losing program. Nobody wanted to play football at Alabama. So what does Saban come in? Instead of coming in and saying, okay, we're going to turn this around in 24 hours, he talks about the only thing he can control, the years that it's going to take to actually get to the level where he can talk about winning. So it's no secret he doesn't want to talk about winning because they ain't going to win. They don't have the best players getting off the bus. So Saban comes in there and he talks about the importance of establishing a culture. He talks about establishing good habits, good rituals, good routines. And that's what you have to do when you're going to lose 5-6 games a year. And then every year as they get better, he holds the program accountable for winning another game, another 2 games, until they're a national championship contender, and then they're a national champion. Jimmy Johnson did the same thing in Dallas. I mean, he talked about winning Super Bowls, but he said, we're years away from winning Super Bowls. We got to now establish a winning culture like he had at Miami. We got to improve our fitness standards, our compete standards. We need to improve our level of talent. We don't have the players. And he was 100% candid. He's like, for us to turn this around in Dallas, we're going to have to turn over this roster a couple of times. Like, he didn't fool around. He was like, if you're on this team in year 1 and 2, there's a good chance you won't even be on this team when we're competing for a Super Bowl. So when they win a Super Bowl, back-to-back Super Bowls, his 4th year and 5th year, I mean, it's a completely brand new roster, just like he promised. Because he worked the process like Saban did in those dark days. You know, that's what you tell the media. That's what you tell the staff. We're just chipping away. 1% better every day, all this other stuff. But in the meantime, they're holding everybody ruthlessly accountable. Everybody from the receptionist to the fitness guys to the nutrition to the guys that clean the locker room, coordinators, assistant coaches, video coaches. And the way they get 1% of 1% of 1% better is by hiring slow and firing fast, improving the team or the culture or the business any way they possibly can. And then once you have the best players getting off the bus, or nearly the best players off the bus, then you can start talking a little bit more about winning games and winning playoff series and competing for championships. And that's how they do it when they inherit these last place teams. That's what Parcells was the master at. He would take over New England or take over the New York Jets, just the worst teams ever. The franchise stunk from top to bottom. And Parcells, they'd say, you know, how quickly can you turn this around? And Bill would always say the same thing. I don't know how many years it's going to take, because I don't know how well these guys will do under pressure. We're not faced with pressure now. We're not a relevant team. We're not a relevant franchise. So until I get the players in here that we need to be in important games, I won't know. And he says, I'll just go on what I see. I'm not going to go on what I hear. I don't look at any game film from years ago. These guys aren't going to be part of the solution. These guys have actually been part of the problem. When you inherit a 1-15 team like Parcells did, like Jimmy Johnson did, like Saban, you know, that horrible Alabama team, those guys, surprisingly to most people, they don't go back and they don't watch the film. They don't, you know, hole up and look at all the film from last year. Oh, 1-15, what can we do better? You know, who do we, they just take a broom to the whole place. They literally take a broom to the whole place. And if they have to keep somebody, it's in the back of their mind that they're just filling a hole till they can upgrade that with a real player. And that's what Parcells, they said, well, what did the film last year tell you about this guy or this guy? And he's like, I burned it. He says, that's all in the past. He says, and you know, the scouts would give him, they would want to talk to him about last year. The scouts would want to talk to him, or the assistant coaches. He's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything about last year. I'm just going to go on what I see. 100% unbiased opinion. And like Parcells always said, if I don't like what I see, I'll make changes. That's simple. I'm going to go on what I see. If I like what I see, great. If I don't like what I see, I'll make changes. So Sheldon nailed it yesterday. Class act, really smart, really intelligent. And I'm glad that he actually shared something of significance yesterday when he said, at the end of the day, the process, that's all fine and dandy. You build it, you bring in the right people, you have the right habits, the right rules, the right rituals, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, in business or in sport, or even in our personal life, we're all in the results business. And, you know, Marc-Andre and I, it took me 7 years to win my first championship with my Perth Blue Wings team. And we always talked about, you know, the daily control what you can control. We can control our effort in the weight room. We can control our practice habits. We can control how much sleep we get, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, when we lost every year in Game 7 or in the finals or the semifinals, that in the back of my mind was like, we need better players. We need better athletes. We need more character. We need more grit. And I held them accountable. And all those 6 years until we won, I would take a record-setting first place hockey team that lost, you know, in the finals, not even in the first round, and I would literally slash 50% of that roster before the next year. I would literally pack the bags of 50% of those players that were unable to deliver when it mattered. Like, what was the point of shooting to be second best? What was the point of trying to be a runner-up? So literally I would turn over those record-setting second place rosters because literally I was holding everybody accountable. If I was just standing there going, well, you know, we just got to trust the process a little bit longer. We're so close. That's what the Laker players said. The Leaf players said, we're so close to something special. And like, fuck, you're close. You're not even close. You lost in the first round to one of the weaker teams. Are you kidding me? And that's the mentality that a Saban doesn't have a mentality like that. An Elon Musk doesn't have a mentality like that. A Steve Jobs didn't have a mentality like that. An Andrew Carnegie, could you imagine? A Rockefeller, a mentality like that. We'll just trust the process, but we'll eventually we'll get there. Eventually we'll get over this hurdle. And those guys are like, no, we have habits, we have rules, we have standards, but at the end of the day, if we don't see the results building every year, we're going to get different people. We're going to get different people. You know, you rarely finish with the people you start with, so get that nonsense out of your head. In the insurance business, we had a process, and at the end of every 30 days, every month, I would jettison people out of my business who weren't producing. Same thing in the barbershop business. Every day, every week, every month, every year, I was measuring performance. Do you think I was measuring performance because I wanted to see if they were trusting the process? No. If they weren't selling and making us money, if they weren't a profitable employee, they were going to be fucking gone. Same thing in this business here. The coaching business, Mark and I measure every day, every week, every month, and every year for the last 4 years. Do you think we're just trusting the process that we'll get there? No. If we're heading west when we need to be heading east, we need to know that this ain't working and that we need to blow it up and we need to head the opposite direction. So that's why losing is such a valuable thing. It teaches you to smarten up and become better. Losing takes you behind the woodshed if you're smart enough to listen and learn, and it takes you to the woodshed and it teaches you to smarten the hell up. So be very careful of any consultant who just talks about, well, we're going to trust the process for the next year. We're going to trust the process for the next 5 years. And if we do enough of these things right, we're going to get the result we want. I like the person who says, you know what, we're going to install a championship culture. We're going to have championship work ethic, championship mental toughness, championship execution. We're going to bring as many high character people and players with grit, stick-to-itness. I'm going to fill your organization with fucking winners. And then we're going to get to work. And if it's not working after a week, after a month, after 6 months, after a year, after 4 years, I'm going to be constantly evaluating to see how we can improve our talent level, how we can bring in even more character, more talent, more determination. And then, of course, everybody's on their toes because they know that a real leader is running things. Trust the process. Trust the process, but punish lack of results. Okay, that's it for today. I'm going to actually head to the beach today with my wife. And I got my reading materials, so it's a hot one here in Paradise City, as Axl Rose would say. Listen, if you want a free copy of my book, remember the link is below. Just download that, brassballsvideos.com. Print it off. It's my free gift to you. Nothing else to buy. 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next 30 days. If you need to get your shit together like I have many times in my life, this is the book that'll do it. And if you use 1 or 2 of these ways, it's really going to make a big difference in your life. I love that. The cleaning lady back there singing. How great is that? How great is that? So the link is below, Brass Balls Videos. Download it, print it off, share it with your friends, and let me know in the comments what you think about it. That's it. Sorry to blow up your process thinking, but process is a myth. The process is a lie. The process is horseshit unless it's connected to ruthless accountability of results. That's it. 2 words that changed my life. The best is yet to come, men. Remember that. Hang in there, stick in there. I believe in you. Greatest time in history to be alive. We're awash in wealth, abundance, and opportunity. It's not easy, it's difficult, but stick in there, stay in there. I believe in you. I'll keep shooting these videos. I'll keep writing books. I'll keep doing my part, and just remember, like my pop says, 90 years young, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that can change yours. Be relentless.